Hey guys, Small Guy 32 here on TikTok and now on YouTube, and we are doing our first long form content where I rate your guys' teams. We're gonna have a lot of fun on this channel. I'll also be doing some fantasy basketball tier lists and whatever else may come up. So let's get right into it. Let's start reviewing teams. I got like over 400 comments on my TikTok video asking you to drop your teams down below. So yeah, let's get right into it. All right, so first off, we have this team from Andres.cif. The league format is a 10-team head-to-head points league with 3 bench spots and 2 IR spots. And we can see the team over here. We got Jalen Brunson, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, Julius Randle, iHeart, Max Christie, PJ Washington, Davion Mitchell, DeMar DeRozan, SGA, Dennis Schroeder, Lonzo Ball, Neemias Queta, Rui Hachimura, and Grayson Allen. Now, when I got this comment, it was around Monday or so, and the main thing that sticks out to me is the fact that we still have Rui Hachimura on our team. Now, Rui during this time was out, and the Lakers only had 2 games this week. In a case where you have a player that isn't a premier sort of player that you need to hold for a long time, that is not only injured, but is only playing 2 games that week, you would rather stream that spot, right? You would rather try to get games out of that slot every single day because Rui isn't going to produce you more points by himself. So as a result, I would drop Rui. In fact, we knew that LeBron was going to come back, right? And he's going to take a lot of Rui's usage and opportunity. So there's very, very little risk in dropping Rui. So that was the first thing that I would have done is get ahead of things, make sure that you drop players on time. The next thing is Lonzo Ball. Now, this is when Donovan Mitchell was still back. The next thing is Lonzo Ball. Now, Lonzo Ball is a fine stream option, but the problem with Lonzo is that I believe Donovan Mitchell was still back at this point, or he had returned from an injury. There should be no reason why he's currently rostered on our team. Immediately, you would want to drop someone that has a better stream schedule or something like that. Now, I think Grayson Allen is kind of in that weird spot. I know that he is injured, but without Jalen Green, I do think that he has a decent opportunity. The problem is I don't know when the timelines are going to overlap. I believe that Allen is probably going to come back a bit earlier than Jalen Green, but that's just a guess on my part as well. And we've seen Grayson Allen do really, really well this season. I think that he'll still be part of the starting lineup with decent usage. They obviously do need help on that scoring front, as Devin Booker can't do it all by himself. So let's just take a look at some of these solid guys. So I can tell that you have a first rounder in SGA, right? You have a second rounder in Jalen Brunson, a third rounder in Reeves, a fourth rounder in LeBron, a fifth rounder maybe in Julius Randle. And then we kind of see like, okay, DeMar maybe in the 6th round, iHeart in the 7th. That's something we can kind of follow. But the rest is just waiver wire guys. And one of the things that I noticed about your team so far is that you don't have any of those long-term waiver wire guys that you can pick up and get a lot of value off of. For example, like a Ryan Rollins or a Nickeil Alexander-Walker. These were all long-term guys that I wish you could have picked up because they're significantly better like than a Max Christie, PJ Washington, Dennis Schroeder. And I know you have Davion Mitchell and he had a great first game, but he also currently isn't like a cream of the crop waiver wire pickup either. He can have his games and he is starting, so it's fine to roster him. It's just that I wish the waiver quality was a little bit better and saw a bit more long term stuff. For example, Ryan Rollins, I believe, could potentially start next to KPJ with how he's playing. At the very least, he would have a very, very large role behind KPJ on the bench. Another guy would be like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We saw that even when Trae Young was there, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was playing great and still getting a lot of shot attempts off the bench. Now he's starting for about 6 weeks. You're getting amazing value out of him, right? So I just wish I saw some of those guys on your roster. But other than that, I see a very structured, draft pick order. It doesn't look like you screwed up your draft in any way. All of the waiver wire pickups at least make sense. There's no one that's like egregiously unconsidered. I would probably drop Dennis Schroeder. I don't trust the Kings guards. I did make a video on that. The only one I would trust is Russell Westbrook, and in category leagues, he will screw your efficiency. So you probably play him in points leagues only. But yeah, you can see like Max Christie and PJ Washington are probably shorter term as guys slowly start to return. Davion Mitchell is probably going to take a big hit when Hero comes back, and that's going to be pretty soon. But the one guy I really do love here is Nemias Queta. I really think he solidified him in that Boston roster, so he's going to be great rest of season. Overall, for this team, I would give it a C grade. It doesn't look like you've done anything special to it. You know, the waiver wire pickups are all acceptable. It feels like you've done the bare minimum. I don't see any trade ups or straight sell highs. For example, Austin Reeves, I would have loved to see a sell high for a second round player or a first round player when he was absolutely on fire. I would love to see a sell high on Julius Randle as well. So those are you do have a couple of guys that you can use that I think will help upgrade your roster rest of season. But yeah, just keep streaming your different spots. You know, keep in mind which players are going to be out of favor once other people or other starters are going to slowly come back. And yeah, I think you'll have a solid squad. So yeah, overall a C. Nothing too special, nothing too crazy, but it's acceptable. It's acceptable. All right, the second team we have is from I Hate J. And league format is the exact same. It's a 10-team head-to-head points league with 3 bench spots, but this time only 1 IR slot. And just looking at this team, we can see a lot of consolidation and a lot of heavy hitters immediately. This person likely traded up, either that or somehow they had a really, really good draft. But we can see that this team already is just extremely stacked, right? We have some very, very high usage guys. So like Luka Doncic, 33.5 usage last year, even with LeBron there. And he sent this when LeBron was still out, right? LeBron was a 30 usage guy last year. Jamal Murray's a 26 usage guy. Siakam's a 28 usage guy. And Levine's like a 23 usage guy. And Anthony Davis also injured 31 and Giannis at 35. So you can see that there's a lot of guys who get the ball and score. And in points, we know that usage is king, right? I want to drill that concept in that the higher the usage a player has, the better they're going to be in points leagues. If we look at the roster, we can see every single person is a must roster player. That includes almost everybody on the bench. I would say the only person that isn't is Kel'el Ware, obviously with Bam Adebayo coming back. But this was sent when Bam was still out, so Kel'el Ware was a fine roster. In fact, a great one. Now I would consider moving off of him. Paul George is now back, so he's got an option there as well, Nemhard. So there's only really one streaming spot here, and that's completely fine. I love the Kyrie Irving stash. I know he's probably going to be back in February if your team suffers a lot more injuries. Like I know Giannis did go down. If your team suffers a lot more injuries, then you know we might have to move Kyrie or figure something out and not hold him. It's hard for me to see a team like yours being down in the head-to-head records. So as a result, I think it's probably fine. You know, losing Giannis obviously sucks, but obviously you got LeBron back and you also got Paul George back. So overall, I think this team is great. I don't know what you did to get multiple first rounders on your squad, but if you did trade up, this is a great example of how you could potentially trade up. But I would say for the majority of the people watching this video, this is not something realistic in your league. You're probably going to see a larger mix of waiver wire guys and must roster guys. You won't see that many players of this high quality on a single team typically. So yeah, I mean, I can't give this thing anything but an A. Obviously, it is a little bit unattainable. But yeah, I hate Jay. I think you have the league winner here, obviously. So yeah, just keep managing it perfectly. I think you have to do very little work as long as injuries don't screw you over. So yeah, can't give it anything but an A. All right, here's the third team by Hector. And we have a 10-team head-to-head points again with 3 bench spots and 2 IR spots. Very similar to the first team that we reviewed. And we can see the team here. We've got Marcus Smart, Desmond Bain, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Johnson, Karl Anthony Towns, Trey Murphy, Tristan Da Silva, Jarrett Allen, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Kel'el Ware, DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Herter, Keegan Murray, Trae Young, and Zion Williamson. And the first thing that I noticed is that this team is actually really, really good. And there's likely a lot of trade-ups that happened. And the reason why I say that is we have Trae Young, who's a first rounder. We have Karl Anthony Towns, who's a first rounder. We have Jalen Johnson, who's like a second rounder, a third rounder. We've got Scotty Barnes also in the second round. I just think that these guys are close enough where, hey, if you picked somewhere in the 9 to 10 range, for example, Trae Young and Zion Williamson, the fact that you got Scotty Barnes and Jalen Johnson in a snake draft is relatively unlikely. So either you had to do some work to trade up, or maybe this is a different sort of format, maybe a third round reversal. I'm not too sure, but it's high quality guys at the top. I don't know if the Desmond Bain pickup obviously was, from my recommendation. If so, and you did buy low, then that's a huge win. He's been playing great lately. Yeah, we see some really solid hitters like Trey Murphy. Zion's now back. Trey Murphy's been amazing. Keegan Murray's returning. And Ryan Kalkbrenner's been great this entire season. We see some waiver wire guys like Marcus Smart, Khalil Ware, Kevin Herter, DeAndre Hunter. These are all fine in my opinion. Marcus Smart, obviously, we should drop now because the Lakers only had a 2-game week. And on top of that, he was out with an illness. It was just not worth holding on to him, especially with LeBron James coming back. Khalil Ware, same thing. Bam Adebayo's back. We saw him play fewer minutes. He's a comfortable drop now. Kevin Herter, Kobe White coming back. He is less attractive. If there's a good schedule, Kevin Herter is still streamable in my opinion. But yeah, if there are better options on the waiver, I would definitely look for those. DeAndre Hunter is going to be great still. Garland's out, so he's getting a decent amount of run. But overall, the one thing I like about that team is the fact that you did trade up, probably, and that you are proactive in improving your team and still getting equal or the same level quality of player off the waiver wire, right? Kalkbrenner is a must roster rest of season. And the fact that you managed to pick him up, that's just great value if you did like a 2-for-1 trade, for example. Another guy like Keegan Murray, I do think he's probably going to be a rosterable guy rest of season. There is still some shakiness, obviously. The one worry about the Kings offense is that the usage is probably going to Sabonis or DeRozan or Zach LaVine, and Keegan Murray is not going to see that much. But right now with Sabonis out, you're probably benefiting a little bit more. And yeah, and obviously the other guy that I haven't talked about is Tristan da Silva, and he makes sense with Paolo Banchero out, so that's completely fine with me. The only thing that's obviously missing from this team is a super heavy hitter. We don't have a top 5 pick like in the previous 2 teams, but I think that's completely fine. I think your players are very solid, and come playoff time, anyone can have a great game, right? Obviously, we're putting a little bit of faith in Zion staying healthy and that Pelicans not shutting him down. Obviously, the team is suffering from injuries with 2 top players going down in Trae Young, and even though Zion has returned, he is on a bit of a limits restriction right now. Overall, the team quality, I would give a B, right? It's not as good as the last one, and although I think it can contend and the roster overall is very solid, I think the chances are probably not as high as the previous team, for example. However, I absolutely love your execution. I love the way that you've drafted and then constructed the team to maintain a decent amount of depth while also being a little bit more top heavy and getting 4 players that would typically go in the first 2 rounds. So overall, the execution by you, Hector, so far this season, I think has been great. A couple things I would probably look to do, maybe sell Jalen Johnson a bit high. Obviously, Trae Young is coming back. We all know that he had that huge game where he almost had a quadruple double with 7 steals. So that was a good opportunity to maybe try to shop him for a first round guy. But it's not that big of a deal because usually he'll be fine anyway. Jalen Johnson is an extremely good player, even with Trae Young. So I think you'll be okay. Yeah, so like I said, overall, I would say a B, but the execution I absolutely love. All right, the next team that we have is from Lucky Lucas. We could see that he's in a 12-team head-to-head points league with 3 bench spots and 1 IR slot. We see the roster is comprised of Devin Booker, Trey Murphy, Scotty Barnes, Cat, iHeart, Con Knipple, Jalen Johnson, Nick Claxton, Jaren Jackson Jr., Reed Shepard, and on the bench we have Santi Aldama, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Duncan Robinson, and Aaron Wiggins. And yeah, this team is extremely well-rounded, right? We can see that Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns are probably the first-round picks. Much like the previous team that we just saw, we have Scotty Barnes and Jalen Johnson as well. So I don't really know how they fell to you. To me, they're, second, third round players. But yeah, it's amazing that you managed to get them on top of a Trey Murphy right there as well. I think a lot of people at the beginning of the season undervalued Trey Murphy. A lot of people were actually trying to sell because he was shooting so poorly. But you got to remember that Trey Murphy was the second best player, or currently is the second best player on the New Orleans Pelicans, right? With DeJounte Murray out for quite a bit and Zion being uncertain, Trey Murphy actually had a great opportunity to be the first scoring option, which we saw he absolutely popped off when he was given that opportunity. So yeah, there was a small buy low window for Trey Murphy, and if you manage to buy him for cheap, then it makes your roster quality look a lot better. Absolutely love some of these waiver wire pickups. Con Knipple, for example, Reed Shepard. I think he's playing great, and I still think he must be rostered. Obviously, I don't love the minutes right now. I'm not 100% sure it's going to trend back up, but I think he is a great rosterable guy. But even in the minimal minutes, he's still very, very productive. So yeah, I'm happy with that pickup. If there's anything that I wanted to point out here, I would definitely look to sell high. And with Nick Claxton, I don't really think he's a sell high. I do think that it is somewhat sustainable. We've seen him be really good just 2 years ago. Last year, he was extremely poor, but this year, he's kind of returned to form. And Jaren Jackson Jr., I really think will have a bounce back. It kind of sucks that we lose a little bit of value while Ja is out and he could be the first option, but you kind of roll with the punches. I wouldn't sell because right now, if you were to sell Jaren Jackson Jr., you'd be selling him for very, very little. Now, while the Grizzly guys are out, Santi Aldama was a great pickup. Bogdan Bogdanovic is a great pickup while Kawhi is out and Bradley Beal now. Duncan Robinson was a great fill-in while the Pistons were a hospital team. Now I think you can comfortably drop him. Of course, this was sent 3 days ago, so it makes sense why you still have him. And Aaron Wiggins on the IR, it's fine. It's not obviously very exciting. I don't really think that Aaron Wiggins is a must roster guy, especially when J-Dub comes back. Obviously, we don't know the timeline of that. But even right now, we see a lot more action going towards Kason Wallace, even though he's more of a steals guy and not so much of a points league guy, and AJ Mitchell. Anyone on that OKC team can pop off, but if I need that extra IR slot, I'm not afraid to just drop Aaron Wiggins altogether. But it looks like your team is really benefiting from injuries, with the exception of Jaren Jackson Jr. being out in his last game. But other than that, you did state that you are 3-0. A big part of that is your team being healthy, probably the entirety of the season so far. So yeah, that's great. In terms of rating, I would say a B. This is a very solid contender. Obviously, not anything to blow my socks off, where it's like we have an SGA, Jokic, or 2 top 5 guys, or anything like that where I feel like you're guaranteed. But I think this is a very, very above average team, one that can contend very easily. I love your pickups. And guys, I just want to clarify that B doesn't mean that your team is bad or anything. B means your team is really good. A means your team is close to absurd and almost unattainable. And I think this is a very attainable team for most people. So this is a great blueprint for anyone who's trying to get into fantasy to get a very well-rounded team and what a team would look like when you make good waiver wire pickups and decisions. And here's the last team I'll be reviewing by Matt.fy. His league format is a 10-team head-to-head points league with 3 bench spots and 1 IR slot. Now here we can see that we have a team of SGA, Concanupple, Jalen Williams, Jalen Johnson, Chet Holmgren, Darius Garland, Andrew Wiggins, Zach Edey, Brandon Ingram, Emmanuel Quickly, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Dennis Jenkins, Derek White, and Tyler Hero. Now, one thing on this team is the fact that we have Jalen Williams, Darius Garland, and Tyler Hero. Prior to the start of the season, we knew that Darius Garland and Tyler Hero were out. In general, I would typically try to avoid drafting injured players, especially ones that are long-term, unless the value falls down below very, very low. Because the moment we see, okay, beginning of the season, Jalen Williams is now out all of a sudden, now we're already in a pickle, right? We're already in a situation where we're trying to figure out our bench spots, our IRs getting clogged. So, especially with small benches and small IRs, it's very, very difficult. But besides that, the player quality on this team is great, right? SGA, obviously great. Jalen Williams, second rounder. Jalen Johnson, in my opinion, a second rounder, right? We've got 2 third-rounders in Chet Holmgren and Derek White. When Tyler Hero is back, which he is coming back soon, I think, he's going to be great, especially in points leagues. I love the waiver wire pickups, right? Concanupple. I think Concanupple is going to be a rest of season must roster. Now, Zach Edey, I don't know if you drafted and stashed him for the entirety of the season or if you just got ahead of it and picked him up, but he's going to be a rest of the season guy as well. That was potentially on waivers. Dennis Jenkins, a great fill-in guy for Cade. I love the waiver wire pickup. And obviously, Nikhil Alexander-Walker. I've been telling everybody that this guy needs to be rostered, especially 6 weeks of no Trae Young. He's going to absolutely cook with the number of shot attempts he was taking even off the bench. Yeah, we have guys like Brandon Ingram who are playing great. Emmanuel Quickly is starting to turn it back up. Darius Garland is nearing a return, and Tyler Hero is as well. I think probably the furthest away right now is Jalen Williams, but you can see Jalen Williams goes into the IR slot. We can see that we have a fully healthy roster of almost must roster guys. And we also have that X factor in SGA. We have that guy that we can consistently rely on to give us 50, 60 points every single week. I think this team, especially when healthy, is going to have a very difficult time losing. I'd imagine your record isn't that great right now, but I think in the future or come playoff time, as long as everything still is smooth sailing from here, your roster will be a-okay. I'm going to give this team a B plus, that plus being like that I love the current trajectory of your team, the fact that everyone's healthy, the fact that you have that superstar player. And I think the chances that you can win your finals is extremely high. The player quality here is great. The waiver wire pickups are great. Matt, you did a great job with this team. So yeah, B plus, obviously not going to blow my socks off, but a very, very, very solid team. And honestly, guys, this is a very good team. Most people would want this team and would be happy with it. I'm just reserving the A's for the teams that look absolutely absurd. A B is a very, very good score. So yeah, that's going to wrap up the team rating video. I know there's a bit of scuffness and it's not very visually pleasing. Just bear with me. I'm trying to mess around with it. I'm not very experienced at any of this. If you have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments below. I will continue to tinker around with the format as well as maybe come up with a more robust grading system. But I think that if I explain my feelings and express my feelings, that you guys can get a general idea of where I'm at. So hopefully this was helpful and you guys enjoy the content or just listen to me yap. I enjoy making these. I do have a lot more teams to go through. I might just make a new video because teams have probably changed. And I did get a lot of comments on the last one. This episode we did focus more on points leagues. Next episode I'm thinking of focusing more on category leagues. I might also do some team reviews on my live stream, so make sure to follow me on TikTok at smallguy32 and make sure if you enjoyed this content that you like and subscribe on YouTube as well at smallguy32. I appreciate you guys. Have a great day and good luck in your leagues.